We must turn to the Eucharist in the good times and the bad. Bishop Fulton Sheen tells a story about how he celebrated Mass at a leper colony in Indonesia. After Mass, he met a woman who was missing fingers, toes, a hand, and most of one leg. She was thrilled to attend Mass and participate in the mystery of Christ's resurrection, because at the right time in the future, she too would receive a resurrected body, free from every disease and defect. The bishop asked the woman where she lived, and she said that she lived in a tent about 5 miles away, and that she walked that distance to attend Mass that morning. Bishop Sheen told her not to come to the morning Mass the next day, because he was going to ride a bike out to where she lived. When he rose early the next morning to celebrate Mass, he found that the woman was present again, waiting for Mass. She had to walk much of the night in order to be on time for morning Mass. When he asked her, "Why didn't you stay at home and wait for me to come see you?" she said that she didn't want to be a bother for the bishop. The moral of this story is that in spite of this woman's suffering, her faith allowed her to see a greater purpose that God has for her. She didn't get bogged down in her suffering, but was strengthened to hope for the promise of heaven. Her faith and hope made it possible for her to love in an extraordinary way. In the desert, the Israelites allowed themselves to be blinded to God's goodness, even after He had worked so many miracles, such as the burning bush, sending 10 plagues on Egypt, crossing the Red Sea, being guided by a column of fire, and receiving the 10 Commandments. Not only that, the Egyptians paid the Israelites in gold and silver to leave their country. But when the first difficulty arises, they curse God and complain. Not only does God overlook the insults, He provides the Israelites with all of the blessings necessary to make it to the Promised Land, plus something they have never seen before, the bread from heaven. Life's struggles are intended to help us turn to God, especially when there is no hope. He gives us the Eucharist to sustain us in this life, but also to lead us into the spiritual Promised Land. Through struggle, God helps us to grow spiritually, but it is through the bread from heaven, the Eucharist, that we receive strength to persevere to the end of our lives and do what would otherwise be impossible. We must turn to the Eucharist in the good times and the bad, if we are going to persevere and become the people He created us to be.